Wyoming's best adventure starts in Wind River Country, located in western Wyoming, just beyond Yellowstone National Park and the Grand Teton Mountains. Wind River Country is the place to go to get away from the crowds, unplug, unwind, and find room to roam. Wyoming's Wind River Country, Yellowstone's unique neighbor.
Hey everyone, we are excited to be here at the Okie Manor in Lost Cabin here in Wind River Country. You'll get an immersive experience as we record right inside this one-of-a-kind home, guided by the current owners, Zane and Ginger Frost. You'll hear the stories and atmosphere as if you're walking through the manor with us. We're not just talking about history, we're bringing you along with us into some of the most unique places in Wind River Country. This is another example of the rich experiences you have when you explore Fremont County's museums. So we will start. Zane Frost will guide us through the historic Okie Manor.
I say, welcome to the big house, and we'll give us a little bit of an idea where we're at here on the outside. In 1900, JB started the process of building this, Okie, and they called him the Sheep King. He started developing his sheep ranch and his sheep empire a little prior to that, but he borrowed money from his mother. And his first loan, as I remember, was around $4,500 at that time. Of course, that's quite a bit of money. And he got sheep. He tried being a cowboy, but by his own admission, was a damn poor one. So he went with the sheep idea, and he was out here on a field trip from military school. And one of his instructors said a man could get his fortune or find his fortune out here in the West. He was actually one of 4 cadets from his graduating class chosen to go into the Annapolis officer training for the Navy. And he did not take that opportunity. He instead chose to come here. So he came to the West, and he came with the military school clothes that he had on, his uniform, and an empty satchel, and that's what he had. There's a draw outside of Lander there called Cadet Draw up near Beaver Rim, and it's named after him because that was his first sheep herding job. He got started in the sheep business from a man by the name of Albright. He ended up marrying his daughter, and their honeymoon was spent traveling from Rawlins back to Lost Cabin in the middle of the winter. As they slept under a wagon, and they camped all the way back from there. And of course, the temperatures were minus 20 at night and that kind of thing. So they're real pioneers. Now, his first shelter, though, was a dugout, and the remains of it are still down on Badwater Creek. But he and his brother, working together, dug into the bank and put a little roof over it. And that's where they slept for the first 3 years here in Lost Cabin before he got married. He developed that thing. He borrowed money from his mother and started this ranch. And the house itself was, the original house was started in 1900, and the construction was complete in 1901. So he did it pretty rapidly. But he brought in, for the stone, they cut stone up here along Badwater Creek. But that stone, he brought masons in from France, stone masons, and they helped him do the rock work. And that's just the first floor, and then, of course, the foundation. But it goes up to stone, and then from there it's wood on through the top. He used cedar shakes as siding. So the original roof was cedar shakes. So when I was able to get a new roof put on, I went with metal that looks like cedar shakes, but it's metal roof. And that's this part of the house. There's an addition that was put on. That's the servants' quarters. And then there's an underground garage under the servants' quarters. The underground garage was right there with it. That was what he had. J.B. Okie had the first automobile in this area. It was called a Smith car. And he used to run all of the kids from around town around in the Smith car. And then he had a golf course just across Badwater over here on what we call the airport. But that golf course was a 3-hole golf course, and he had a friend by the name of McNee. I believe it was Charlie McNee. And he would get off of the train in Lysite and hit a golf ball all the way to Lost Cabin. And he and Okie would get together and play golf over there. Charlie McNee was quite a character. And then they would run around in the Smith car as well. That car, from what I understand, ended up at the museum in Reno, Nevada. and you can still see it. And you'll notice as you came from Casper or you come from Shoshone, every 10 miles there would be a little town. Coming from Shoshone, the first town you hit is Okla. You don't know it, but it's there. And so 10 miles east of Shoshone, you hit Okla. And then at Okla, then in 10 more miles, you hit Moneta. And as you go on, is every 10 miles. And the reason that is because the steam engines could only go about 10 miles before they had to get more water. So each of those places did exist, and they're there, but you can't see them anymore much. Except for Highland. JB actually had a home in Pasadena, California. He also had another place down in Texas. I guess there's a whole lot we can get into here still. The aviary, which I don't know if you ever heard that he had an aviary. There was a glassed-in aviary right about there where the clothesline is, and that had the largest collection of exotic birds in North America. He built this quite early. So when you consider, as we go through the house, think about that. It wasn't maybe as fancy as some, but it's pretty amazing what he did, and especially out here, right? It's not really the middle of nowhere, but when we get to the cupola, you can see it. It's right over there. That's the administration building. He actually built that, and he housed employees in the upstairs, and the bottom he used for office space. He was very diversified, I guess you could say. This country has a habit of being dry from time to time. It's bad water for several reasons. It's either a flash flood that washes away entire communities, or it's drier than the popcorn. It's very dry. And anyway, it's the way it is around here. So he was going through a drought period, and he ended up railing his sheep down to Mexico for feed. Has anyone ever heard of Piggly Wiggly stores? J.B. Okie was one of the co-founders of that chain of stores. He and his partners, and he actually had about a half a dozen of them down in Mexico. The Silver Barn is the old livery stable. You can just see the roof of it there. This shed right here, as you see through the trees right there, that metal roofed building that's built into the side hill, that's where he put the light plant. So you were asking about the building across the street. As late as 1967, there were family living in there. They lived up there. So all the electricity in Lost Cabin came from that light plant. It's an old diesel engine, and it was sitting down in that building there. And you'd start it up, and that'd give you your power. The deal was every night at 10 o'clock, that was powered down. No more lights. And you could stay in those apartments up there, and you were allowed a light and an iron, or a light and a radio. But you could not use a light, an iron, and a radio. You couldn't do it. Because if you did, it pulled too many amps and it knocked that down. And I'm pretty sure that the missus used an iron and a light and a radio at the same time, maybe 3 or 4 times. Because I think Tom he'd have to bundle up and go out and restart the generator about the 3rd or 4th time of that, and it probably irritated him a little. And they were using that up until, like I say, 1967. It's pretty good shape. And in that bank, there's a couple of old stands with a kind of a pipe. That was the mixing place for the brick. And they pulled out clay out of that wall, and then they'd fire the brick down in an old building down here. And those are original Lost Cabin bricks. And JB's second wife, Clarice Okie, was the one who had the windows installed. But most of those windows, if you look close, they're the old glass. They're wavy, and that first one there is real obvious. The old windows are there, and they're pretty cool. And when we get into the dining room, I have rice paper on the wall. And rice paper is an amazing product. The wallpaper hanger that they were using was out of Riverton. And he came out and looked at it, and he said, "I will not take this down." He had actually put the paper in when Okie built it. And he said, "I refuse to remove this. If you can find someone else who wants to take it out, I'll put back whatever you like, but I won't take it out." And so it remained. And you'll see why it's cool when we get in there. But are we ready to head into the house? When we come in, anyone that's interested in going up into the servants' quarters, like I say, just watch your step. But that's the old servants' quarters. And we get to the upstairs suites, there would be like a doorknob or doorbell button on the inside of the suite. They could actually punch that button and it would ring down here in the servants' quarters and let them know which suite upstairs needed attention. So this is the kitchen. It's been modernized. They've lowered the ceiling a bit, but this is a modern kitchen. There was if you look here, you can see where they've added in here on either side of the stove. That was a like a big double oven gas stove. Originally, it would have been a wood stove. The house is heated with hot water heat, not steam, but hot water. So hot water circulates through the registers as we go through the house. There isn't one in here. So this tends to get a little bit chilly from time to time. And then when we added the new floor, it's still a little bit chilly from time to time. As we go through, this is what we call the butler's pantry. As you go through here, you can look through the little glass doors on the right and the cupboards, and there's all kinds of things. You're welcome to peruse this as we're going through into the dining room. This is the dining room. This is the rice paper I was telling you about. So we ended up keeping it. Yeah, the wallpaper hanger guy said, I'll put up whatever you want. I'm not taking it down, because it was so hard to put up. So he got it up, and then he said, no, I won't take it down. If you can find someone else to take it out of here, I'll put up whatever you want, but I'm not removing it. But in that area, that was the door that the general public could access the mailboxes for the post office 24/7. We now use this not much. It's not real warm in the winter, and it's not real cool in the summer. What is unique, though, this particular desk, turns out that's J.B. Okie's desk. That was the desk that he had when he ran his entire deal. So it's not the fanciest, but it's the best doggone desk I could have ever hoped to have. And you'll notice behind your head there on the wall, that phone. The reason that's in there actually came out of Ginger's dad's studio. But I put it there to remind us that was the first telecommunication system in the area. There was a switchboard. It was operated by a gal by the name of Edna Allen. So that was where that switchboard sat, and that line came up from Bonita and went clear to the Cunningham corrals up on top of the Bighorns up there. As we round the corner in the porch out here, so this is the great hall. This is where they would set the orchestra up to dance. Had the foods and the eats in the dining room there, but then they opened the rest of it up, and then you could dance around. They used to bring all the fancy women in their fancy dresses when they came. This was the main entrance here. So they bring their horses up this way. Through here, I'll turn the light on, but this is the main entryway. And as we enter the main entryway here, you can look at the trappings on the wall coverings. Those are leather, okay? And then the lantern, and I'll light it up here, it was originally part of the carbide lighting system. Had gas. You can see the little petcock up in there. A little burner, but that's Spanish lantern. It's wrought iron. It's a lantern from Spain. It was built in Spain. And when we get upstairs, you'll see a couple of globes in the hallway upstairs. They're a deep purple. You know how glass would turn purple when it aged? I don't spend a lot of time with those old fixtures because you can't replace it. It's irreplaceable. So anyway, this is original. I don't see a bead corner in here, but I don't know if anyone noticed. There in the dining room, there's a kind of a strip on the corner of the wall. Those, I didn't know what they were, but on high-end homes, they put those on the corners so that they don't get damaged. They're a protection. You'll see one there in the dining room by the fireplace, called bead corners. So these tapestry moldings are original. See, Okie would travel. He was a homeschooler. He was on the school board, but he educated his own children. He homeschooled. And when they had to have a second and a third language, he required 2 other languages besides English. So whatever language they decided, he would, at the age of 16, take them to that place. So if it was French, he took them to France, and they'd spend anywhere from 3 to 6 months in that place so they could really get a handle on the language. And he did that with his kids. So when you see these fireplaces and you see some of the other things, I think there was quite an influence from Europe on some of this stuff, the tiles and all of these kinds of things. But anyway, he was way ahead of his time. I don't know if it's fiddleback or if it's bird's eye, but I believe that's a maple on that fireplace mantel. That's my favorite hearth there, or mantel. But you can see that has fleur-de-lis, as does the other room. But if you get into the dining room, I don't know if you noticed, but it's more brusque. It's more, I think, German or Roman. And they say that each of the fireplaces represents a different forest somewhere in the world.
Helen, this is a really cool place to be able to do a podcast at.
It is. There's a lot of history here. It's a beautiful day. We just got a really great tour of the J.B. Okie Manor. And I wanted to mention that we have in our county, we have these amazing treks that are through the Fremont County Museums, which is Du Bois, Lander, and Riverton. The Wind River Visitors Council sponsors these, so we're excited when we get to participate in them. And we're lucky to have somebody from the museum here with us.
Jamie is joining us. Jamie, I could already tell you had a great time. You love what you do. And we want to make sure folks know about all the stuff the Fremont County Museums do.
Yeah, so we host treks every summer. Obviously, we had a really fun time today. We actually have 2 different treks coming up in the next 2 weeks, shooting through to December. There'll be more.
And the treks kind of range from all different kinds of opportunities, education, sightseeing. How does it go about to pick some of these treks? Do you know? It seems like it's a fun thing to put these together.
We definitely find different community members that can give us different stories of Fremont County so that we can expose more people to more areas. We try to vary it up so that it's not always the same thing each time.
And in order to find out what the museums have as far as treks go, Wind River Visitors Council, windriver.org has a full list. How about family friendly for most of the treks with the museum? Kids allowed, all ages? Like for this one, we have a wide range of different age groups here.
Some treks, there might be some age restrictions based on physical ability. That would be something to look at. Usually we list that in our treks.
I hope people have enjoyed learning a little bit about the J.B. Okie Manor, a lot of history, very unique. It is definitely off the beaten path, but because of the stuff that the Fremont County Museums do and the Riverton Museum, you are able to go out to these places and actually be able to view and look at these things. So thank you so much to your crew for putting these on, and thank you so much to the Frosses for letting us come out to their property.
Thanks for tuning in to Wyoming's Wind River Country, Yellowstone's unique neighbor. Visit us at windriver.org and follow Wyoming's Wind River Country on Facebook and Instagram. This podcast has been brought to you by the Wind River Visitors Council.